Okay, trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees for February 26, 2024. I'd like to open the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Arlene, can you do roll call, please?
John Aldred.
Here.
Francis Bob.
Here.
David Cataletto. Patrice Dalton. Here. Ken Hollander.
Here.
Arno. Jim Grimes.
Yes.
Celia Josephson. Here. And Bill Taylor.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, move on to public comment. There's nobody in the building. Matt, do we have anybody on the phone lines?
You have 0 calls on the line. Thank you.
No new business. Move on to committee reports. 3 Mile Harbor, a request from First Coastal on behalf of Landfall Property Owners Association to remove existing bluff staircase and install a new staircase in a new location.
Allison, can you put that up and scroll down to the survey? Or, I don't know if you need to scroll down. Yeah, so the Landfall Association on Hedges Banks Road wants to put in a new staircase. The staircase, some pictures of the existing staircase. The shore is eroded quite a bit. The staircase has sustained a lot of damage. And this is actually a good staircase to get rid of because it sits pretty far out on the beach. It's got really heavy cement piers that act as foundations for it. The plan is to remove all that and relocate the staircase to the west. And the reason for that is that everything pitches from there's all the roads pitch
like
to the top of the
where the
path.
stairs are now.
And that's what the
Path.
causing the problem.
Pitches to the,
Well, yeah.
So the
Here's the
move,
existing stairs are here.
the new location suggested kind of veers off to the left and uphill a little bit, so it'll avoid ever getting washed out again.
It's a little closer to it's a little less on the beach too, right?
well,
It's steeper over there, right? So it's a little.
it's a little higher,
Higher.
it's steeper, I
Yeah.
think. But they're gonna tuck where the staircase lands on the beach right to the toe of the bluff. So that's a plus for beach access.
Is this the community staircase?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Association staircase.
It's like a
It's like a
homeowners association.
There's like a common pathway
Right.
going down there.
So that the plan is up on the new plan's up on the screen there.
John, do they
So
have any of the other agency permits yet?
They don't have, I think, he said it, if they had, I don't know if they need DC. Guess they do. I know they don't have ZBA yet, right?
No, but they definitely want to get this done before the season.
ZBA usually handles these administratively. And they've submitted it, but
Do you think this makes sense to vote on tonight? Or does it make sense to table this, let them get their other permits and then we can get the language aligned?
I don't see that there's any reason not to give it our approval. Our approval is really
For the touch on the
beach.
beach.
Yeah, I mean, there may be some concerns of the other agencies about relocating the path, but I think their reasoning is pretty sound for relocating the path. So I think when all is said and done, this will be the final plan.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, sure. I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Anyone opposed?
There's also a safety issue over there too.
Yeah.
Okay, PEP, meeting update. You again, I think, for one of you.
Trees can go.
So there were two presenters. One was with respect to an eelgrass, retrospective analysis of eelgrass over time that had been conducted by people from 2009 till about 2019. They inventoried the eelgrass in 7 locations in the Peconic. And one of them was Bullhead, I think, Bullhead,
Bullhead Bay one.
which is up near Sabonic Golf Course and Barker's Island. And they did an in-depth data integration on that one with water temperature over time, hard shoring, hard structures on the shore, increasing nitrogen levels and water temperature. So they made it a sort of a nice little database for themselves, but in getting all this data and putting it together, like the eelgrass inventory data hadn't been in a usable state due to just differences in how it was done, how it was conducted, where it was put. It just wasn't in a nice uniform data set. So they did that, which must have been tedious and really difficult. And I think what they were trying to do is make this into a communication tool. So they'll have all these data in one place, and you can kind of query it with a user interface to kind of generate hypotheses or test out hypotheses. But it's not really going to be helpful for new research because it doesn't have prospective data in it, and you really can't, it's interesting, but there's more to do. So this was like the first piece of it for them.
Was PEP doing this, or is this cooperative extension?
This is somebody's master's project.
Yeah.
And I think PEP is funding some of it. So it was the woman who was getting their degree.
Yeah. Well, it started a while back. We were meeting about 4 years ago, and many of us were aware of different data sets that were around. And we asked them, could they do something about finding those data sets and putting them all together? And they kind of tried, and it was too difficult. And so I think they leveraged that master's thesis to do this. So it's it's a nice piece of work.
But it's not ready yet.
It's not ready yet. There's more to do.
But it's pretty close to, I think, the end of April.
Yeah.
Down, it should be ready. So it's basically, you're going to be able to take all the information that, as Patrice said, was collected and presented and categorized in different ways in different years. Most of this data was from Cornell Cooperative Extension's eelgrass surveys over the years. They changed their methods halfway through in some cases. So she's integrating it all into one systematic way of looking at it. And then that can continue with any additional data that's plugged into this presentation, but it'll be accessible to anybody on the web, and so we can see how the eelgrass diminished over the years in a systematic way.
Drooping grass.
It's not positive.
Well, I think it was interesting that they got land use data from the towns, how land was divided up. That's not necessarily in there yet, but they can put that in. So, it's a work in progress. It's going to have maps too.
Right.
So that was that one. And then the second presentation was Nicole. And she was talking about how salt marshes can't thrive if the roots don't have a good, the roots of the, whatever was growing in there, the salt hay can't get a good root system going. And I think her hypothesis seems to be that the peat is holding the water in, the roots, and the water's not running off of the salt marsh in the way it should. So due to man's interventions in, in harvesting the salt grass, and also just sea level rise and other
You
things.
can really go back to harvesting saltate as a causal agent, simply because this is an activity that literally had gone on for a few hundred years.
Yeah.
I do buy into the sea level rise. I buy into the consequences of the mosquito ditches and the creation of these pans and stuff. But I think sometimes there's too much speculation with with anything supporting that.
I tend to agree with you. I mean, I asked a lot of people who had access to historical materials, and they couldn't find much evidence of this. And she shows some pictures with tracks, supposedly, tractors in the salt marsh. It's sort of difficult to differentiate from natural, just if it's the peat is soggy like that, it's just put down. I mean, originally they said they were growing crops in there. We researched that extensively, and there was no records of any crops being grown.
Well, actually, they probably weren't growing crops, but most likely, I know like down in Springs, they were grazing cattle.
Yeah.
And stuff in those areas. Those areas, in fact, the fencing is still in. You can still find the vestiges of the fencing and stuff down there.
See some
But it was
roads
very
here.
unlikely that those soils had ever reached a point where the salinity had dropped to the point that you could grow crops. In some other areas, like you get up into Nova Scotia, you get the Minas Basin area, and that what they had done 300 years ago is they had diked those same kind of salt marshes that we have, and they put one-way valves on them. So when the incoming tide came, the valve closed shut. When these drains were flushing out, that water would flow out. And over a period of time, you went from being able to graze cattle in these areas to ultimately the soils being such that you could begin to grow hay, and then the next step was field crops. And it was very, very successful.
Wow.
To the point that in the 1740s, the most productive agricultural lands in the eastern seaboard were in that Nova Scotia area.
I think to a degree, some of that type of work was also done in Accabonac, because a lot of the intensive mosquito breeding areas are behind, obvious dikes.
Yeah.
And, they were formerly allowed to flush with the tide, and now the water gets trapped behind there. So the plan, the proposal that Nicole has submitted to different agencies for funding is mainly to allow, to develop a plan and carry it out that allows these areas that are not well drained to be better drained. So
We're gonna remove all the stuff we put in 30 years ago?
no, it's really to take a sort of a soft approach to it, and instead of, digging a big ditch and going in there with heavy machinery, it's, just small, what they call runnels, which is more shovel work than machinery work. And there's also a possibility of adding sediment to the marsh. That's one possibility. It's probably doubtful that would happen in Accabonac, because I think you kind of have to have the ideal situation where you're doing some dredging and then the marsh would benefit from
We
sediment.
have a situation like
would
that in Accabonac.
Would that raising in the marsh, let's say, would that be compatible to the non-beach compatible sediments that you find farther back in the marsh?
That was a there was some discussion about that this meeting, and I didn't realize this, but Tom Iwaneko from the
He's been doing it in
Vector Control-
Connecticut.
Well, they did it in Seatuck.
Yeah.
About, I don't know, whenever they did that, they did a whole bunch of work up there. They created ponds and
Yep.
they filled in ditches, and one of the things they did was flood dredge spoil onto the marsh in certain places to try to raise the elevation.
Yeah,
So
we
there's
have a-
different ways of doing it. You can just flood it out there, which is what they did. You can also kind of shoot it from cannons and kind of disperse it, more thinly.
You say can.
Well, it's whatever, like the thing in, Montauk,
Like a dredge would.
shooting.
No, they have things like Butterworth, no, they have like, it's like a lawn sprinkler on steroids, a lot of steroids.
And,
It's like a slurry. It's like a slurry spreader you'd get on a farm.
What we're trying to get dredged to the boat base in Accabonac is a perfect
It would
spot.
be nice, because that the stuff done over in Seatuck, that was done, what, 6 years ago, I think now?
I think longer ago than that,
Yeah.
but
But have they, like, is there any follow-up research on how that worked out?
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
Because, it'd be nice if we could get eyes on that, simply because Accabonac and, PP's been working and trying to come up with they have a master sort of project or want list there. But it would be nice if this has worked somewhere else, to try and do a pilot program out here on that.
I think that's a whole
Accabonac would
new
be,
proposal, actually.
yeah, but Accabonac would be probably for us, be the ideal spot to
I
do
know,
it.
I spoke to some of them like a couple of years ago, but that would be a perfect spot.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the area of the boat basin, the county doesn't want to dredge because it's not beach soluble material. We have the doctor looking into identifying the composition of that material. And if it's compatible with the marsh, they should put it up there. And it's
Well,
also
that's easy to say.
but it's a
But you start
perfect
getting
spot
down to the,
it's a perfect spot to observe it also.
It would be an interesting project, but
Yeah.
it's, Nicole's got a proposal in to the EPA, which is, I think she said there were 250 applications to this grant call. So she's not sure that she's going to get it, but she's also got the same proposal into, well, maybe that was NOAA. She's got the same proposal into the EPA estuary program. So that would basically allow the work, if it doesn't get funded by NOAA, it would allow the work to be done under the EPA estuary program grant, but only in Mashomack and Accabonac, whereas the NOAA proposal is for 5 or 6 different marshes throughout Long Island. So there's hope that the funding will come through for this project in Accabonac, but she's not going to be able to all of a sudden say, oh, we want to throw in
yeah.
flooding the marsh with sediment.
You're right, it's a different project, I get it. I'm just,
With sea level rise and everything, there's going to be a lot of these projects going on, maybe not now, but maybe 10 years from now.
Well, they all require a lot of time for, planning and funding and permitting, not
I
the
realize
least of which.
This seems like a project that should be a proposal, anyhow.
So should we follow up with Tom on the CTUP
it'd
project?
be nice, I forget, I think I might have spoken to him.
Have you ever seen it?
Kim did a lot. Kim was involved in that project.
few
She was
years
at the
ago,
county at the
and-
time.
He got, Kevin McAllister kind of badmouthed the shit out of Tom Iannaco when he was here. But,
Kevin
No.
McAllister.
yeah, but, the guy really He did.
He's
At
a
the
breath of
margin.
fresh air.
Yeah.
For vector control.
Actually, it was not him, it was Ninavaji.
Was.
Actually went over to Connecticut and started working on that kind of stuff. I mean, he's not the enemy.
No, well, he wasn't. He had been for certain people.
For certain people. But, you know, his heart was in the right place. He just was encumbered by the rules of his job.
That's it.
Hey,
Okay.
Francis, can we back up on new business?
Let me see.
He's
Tom?
just a council person. He's not here for anything.
Did you want to address us for anything, or you
No,
just
just your
sitting in?
I can give you some liaison updates. I mean, I'm also the liaison now to the Peconic Estuary Trust, so I'm meeting with them later in the
Would
month
you
as
want to
well.
step up to the floor?
Good evening, folks. Tom Flight, Town Council member, so I'm your liaison for those of you who don't know. You know, I cover a variety of committees. The most pertinent meetings I've had relevant to you guys recently probably relate to the Peconic Estuary Group Trust. I met with Joyce Novak, and I'm going to be joining their meetings going forward. So if there's anything you would like me to bring to those meetings on your behalf, I'd be happy to do so. I know I met with John and Francis earlier discussing the Peak Harbor and what they can do there. So I'll be bringing those discussions to them as well. But other than that, I'm here to address any issues you have and facilitate anything you need from the town.
Tom, I'm not sure, are you going to be meeting with the water quality when Joyce comes to the water
I
quality?
will be at that water quality meeting as well, yes.
So we're represented on that committee as
Great.
well, so.
Good. Okay.
And what we were actually just talking about was the technical advisory committee meeting of the Peconic Estuary Program, which was last week, that Patrice and I attended, so.
With the eelgrass? You're just
Eelgrass
referencing?
and the
Yeah.
marsh restoration, yeah.
Gotcha. And I'd said to Jim earlier, when you guys go out and do the horseshoe crab counts, I'd be happy to join you for that. Something I'd be very interested to see.
That's actually Cornell Cooperative Extension.
Okay.
We do not do.
Oh, it's not you guys? Okay.
Well,
No,
we do.
members of our board do it, but
Participate.
it's a voluntary thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's done by individual volunteers on the board.
Gotcha. No,
Jim loves to recruit.
Yeah.
Bodies.
Unfortunately, my reappearance rate's fairly low. For some reason, guys like going out when it's 7 o'clock at night, and then when you get to those 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning counts.
not so key. I'm also here to remind Jim he's on squad tonight for ambulances to travel.
Yeah, I know, that's why we both have to be out here. We're both on, so.
All right.
Tom, while you're here, I just sat in on a sustainability committee meeting that happened just before this. And I guess for the trustees, the idea is to sort of figure out which areas there's a sort of cross-section between what we do and what they do. Obviously, we're not involved with heat pumps and that kind of stuff. However, you know, a few things are coming up. One is Earth Day is April 22nd, so there might be some kind of coordination involved. They're also, I was unclear, but they seemed to identify that there were funds that were coming directly to them from the wind farm, which they wanted to funnel into education and incentives.
That's not correct.
But that doesn't, I didn't think that was correct.
That's not
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
Totally untrue.
Okay. All right. Well,
Just on public record, definitely incorrect.
okay, well, that was my impression.
I think there's a lot of,
In their impression.
I think there's a lot of people who have plans for how that money should be used, but
There was some incredible discussions about this, and it's all kind of very definitely
It's
worked
a
out.
fairly neat and tidy lease at this point.
Now, I actually had something that is in the category of dumb question, but the extent to which problems that occur with the aquifer, for example, from gas leakage, from things like those lawnmowers and such that are problematic, to what extent does our jurisdiction reach over into the aquifer? And I mean, obviously, my sense is it doesn't, except that when it comes to issues of pollution that can then gravitate to the harbors.
So
You know,
I'd
I
really
wanted
like you to
clarity
back
on
up
that.
on the lawnmower.
Yeah.
Part of your
why? I got electric,
Yes.
Jim.
But also, we're basically impacted neighbors. This stuff.
Yes. Well, what's your point with lawnmowers? Now, you've
Well,
kind of-
one, it was raised at the Sustainability Committee that there was a proposal in front of the town board, actually, I think that was mentioned, where there was a desire to
Go all
extend.
electric on housing.
Yeah, go all electric,
Yeah,
not just on
on
housing,
new
but on-
developments. And yes, that is correct, that the Sustainability Committee there was a work board discussion, I think, in December previously, where it was discussed about all new residential developments to be all electric, except for stoves, gas stoves, would still be maintained. So that's again to be discussed. I had a meeting today with two of the members, because two of the board members are new, obviously one in that December meeting. So we had a discussion with members from the energy and sustainability community today. I think what you're speaking to with regards to the fuel piece is what they kind of briefly brought up my thing too, is I think any pollution that takes place on the land that goes into the aquifer has an impact on the water quality here. And it was just an example, Jim, being used of say something.
Yeah, but you know what troubles me? When somebody brings something like this up at a public meeting with absolutely no citing individual incidents or things like that, you're sending a perception that there's a problem where it might not be. One of our board members a few years ago did something similar, where they brought up gas spillage in 3 Mile Harbor at a particular marina. And you know what? Be careful with innuendo. Okay, false statements don't actually move a constructive dialogue forward. That's the issue I have with that. It's very easy to kick up an environmental issue, identify it, detail it.
I think that's true. I think the point
Because
is
it erodes your credibility down the road when you're going to try and put something into effect.
I agree. I think it's kind of speaking generally to protection of the water aquifer, to your point there. There's a variety of ways that are being looking at it. I mean, from my own personal perspective, I'm looking at it from emergency preparedness. You know, what is the state of our water aquifers?
Yeah.
So I'm meeting with Suffolk County Water Authority to kind of look into that. What's the testing they've done? What do we have? There are specific threats to it. I mean, we've seen on Shelter Island raising sea levels with salinity getting into the aquifer, other causes. So
See, there's an example where our jurisdiction would have direct relevance. So that's what I was attempting to sort of identify.
Yeah. A lot of the concern about pollution with landscaping equipment and lawnmowers and things like that was when everything was a 2-cycle engine. The 2-cycle engine pumps so much pollution out, it's like crazy. Everything's gone to 4-cycle engines right now, which are
Actually,
totally less polluted.
no long chainsaws, weed eaters.
No, I mean, there
such
are
a two-cycle
some things,
But
but
you know
it's
what's,
not everything.
can I tell you what's important? It never seems to come into the dialogue. It's very easy to say, we should do this, we should do that. There are pre-mixed gas mixtures that burn much cleaner. I mean, there are things out there and are being used by almost every landscaper out there as part of their normal professional practices that actually are very environmental in intention and quality. Because the bottom line for any business that's operating right now is if you get a gasoline, oil spill or something like that, your cleanup costs typically start in the $50,000 range, and your insurance company would rather not know you. Okay, so DEC several years ago really cracked down the old days of the landscape guy driving down the road with the 5-gallon cans falling all over the back of the trucks. You haven't seen that in ages. I mean, some of the guys like ourselves, we don't have any gas cans, period. Like our mowing trucks have everything is internal. There's a small gas pump for both 2-cycle and 4-cycle gasoline on the trucks, so that everything is essentially self-contained. There is zero opportunity for things like spillage. So sometimes I take exception to these things when members of the public want to just so eager to make a comment that isn't based in any knowledge, and that's unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most complaints I hear is, and on the Agabonic Protection Committee, we got a lot of complaints about the noise of mowers, but nothing about spillage, anything like that. They just objected to the noise.
Well, as I said before, anything you guys need from me, please let me know. I'm gonna head back to Montauk now because I'm on the squad.
Thanks,
So
Tom.
take it easy, guys.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Hopefully I don't see you later, Tom.
Before you leave,
I'm not done.
See ya.
I wanted to back up to new business, but,
is this the boat expenditures?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, boat expenditures, and, listen, we have Doug, who's been doing a terrific job as our senior pump out boat captain. He had mentioned last fall of some items that he wanted to pick up that he enumerated too, and Allison put it out and got a price on it. It's a little over $1,000. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's a little light, Allison, it's a little light. There's some other supplies that I think we should be proactive about getting, some nozzles and things like that. Because what's gonna happen is we don't need them now. Once the season gets going and we start using our inventory, we're gonna need to back that up. So we may wanna,
Add some more nozzles to that?
based on previous years, I'll give Doug a call.
Okay.
And we'll just add a little bit to that. So
Okay.
that was one. That was a little
Wanna
over
go 2,000?
1,000. What's that?
Want to go 2,000?
Yes,
She had
please.
14.
Right, that we were at 14, so you want to
Yeah.
bring it up to 2?
Yeah, you were actually at 1,026 on the proposal, but I'd like to go to $2,000 if we could.
And then with the other, there was an additional one in the email that I mentioned, it's like an additional couple.
Oh, I didn't get that one. I just got what you have here. And then the other thing is I just wanted to update you guys what's happening in Georgia. We had a very successful year at doing the dredging. Probably a week to 10 days before they're off the beach. Georgia is open right now. It's tidal. But we took a lot of sand out of there this year, and despite having a little bit of pond bottom, which oddly enough was not on the bottom of the pond, we had a few complaints. It was actually gray clay sandwiched between some of our layers of sand, that when they first started digging, that they were picking this stuff up, and it was a little hard to separate it. But once they got into the meat of the project, everything cleared up, and it's pretty nice if anybody's been down there.
It does, sand looks good.
Yeah, no.
Have they gotten takers for the sand?
Oh, yeah. Come on, man, if you're taking a drive down the beach, I don't think that's an issue.
That's, not this year, it's not an issue.
What's that?
They want it out in Heather Woods, Heather Hills, not Heather Hills, Ditch Plain.
Yeah. You know what's really too bad is that they
But it was
couldn't
supposed to go
actually
down drift.
have made some arrangements
That
with
is.
those guys to move that dredge.
Up drift.
You know what,
Yeah, to
No, if it goes down
I
there, then it
suggested
comes
that they
back.
just have it pumped for another day or two, and then move the stuff by
East-west cycle.
truck.
Yeah, but can I tell you what? The thing I looked at there, you had the dredge was there. They had started cutting because they finished dredging, I think, yesterday, and those guys went right to cutting that pipe down and loading it out. But if they had taken about a quarter of the pipe that they brought it down to Ditch Plains, the discharge, the flexible pipe that you can see the floats on it out there, they could have pumped that full of air, towed it down to Ditch Plains with a tug, and set up. It probably would have only taken them a day or two to set up to pump that beach. And whatever the cost of that would have been, I think if you figured it out to a cubic yard basis, it would have made a heck of a lot more sense than what we've been doing trucking sand. Because if anybody's gone down there and checked out that beach, it's a completely different situation than what we've seen in years past.
That barge is probably so booked up, I mean, that.
You know what they call that barge?
It's so
They call that barge the job killer.
That thing,
because it does the work so fast. The shore crews hate it because they said like a project like Montauk's would normally be
should take 6 months,
6 to 8 months, and they did it in under a
couple
month.
weeks. But that's, the economies of scale. I'd suggested that they try and get the guy to just pump it right to the western end of the job for another day or two, and then move it down with.
Yeah, but you know what happens there, Bill, is as soon as you,
Commits and all that.
as soon as you handle that sand, load it in the truck, unload it, and then start pushing it around, you've tripled the cost of that sand.
But having the sand close would have been the cheapest way to do it.
Yeah, but the cheapest way of doing it would have been
But then you had to move it. Yeah,
no, it would have just been friggin', you're taking the sand from the same spots
But if you're talking
offshore.
about demobilizing the equipment and moving it all, that's where it gets into money.
You guys can negotiate the
Anyhow,
next 60
yeah.
years of this project.
What we are right now is we hope the wind comes from the west for a long time, right?
Well, they're coming back in a few years, so maybe that's,
Yeah.
It looks cool.
yeah.
It's impressive.
I
That's
want
what
to
you,
add one more thing to your expenditure. I'd like to get an electric power washer for the boats. We have these parades that keep coming up, and we undress the boat, and then it has to be washed and all that.
day-to-day cleaning.
How do they wash the bottoms now?
I think they're doing it by hand, I'm not sure.
Well, there's a
But-
deck hose on the boat that they wash.
When they
them off,
come
but
out of the water?
When they come out of the water, they go to the marina. The marina is the one that's doing it.
But this is only I'm talking about for our own use.
Yeah.
For the pump out boats?
Yeah, yeah.
We haven't
But we have the
cleaned last
parade
year.
coming up, so we're gonna be taking the cover off of it. We don't really have anyone definitely lined up yet to do it. It may be us, so.
Could a detail guy do it? Rough detail guy?
I don't know,
But it's not that big a
for
deal.
less than $500, we get a little electric power washer and do it ourselves quick.
Let's then get
Where do we
one.
keep it?
They'll charge $500 to do it once.
Yeah, that's worth having.
Yeah.
When we get the
Wait,
trustees vote.
is the date confirmed, March 24? Is that a Sunday or?
It's a Sunday. It's always a
And,
Sunday.
and what time does the parade start?
You have to be there at 10:30 to line up for,
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Thanks, Al.
10:15, sorry.
Which means leaving here between
8.
Is it 9?
We usually meet at either my house or Jim's shop, and we decorate the boat and get it all ready.
Oh, nice.
So we have to leave leave them again.
A lot of the
Probably
decorations
30th.
you don't want to drive along the stretch with the boat decorated.
Uh-huh. Okay.
While we're on the topic of the parade
Can
real quick.
I'm sorry, can I pause you guys? I'm so sorry. Are you approving the money tonight? So he keeps jumping back and forth. This one, are you approving it or are you
So
not?
so is there a
Tabling
motion
it?
for both of these expenditures, 2,000 and 500?
I'll make
I'll
a
make a
motion.
motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
All right.
Just want to add one more
Sorry,
expenditure.
Ben.
John and Ben?
Yeah, I think so. We got our delivery for supplies for the parade, candy and necklaces. I think we need one more bag of candy. I just asked for an extra $150 to be approved. Buy some more candy.
We don't have any in that room, there's all that stuff.
Nope,
No
There isn't.
candy.
not enough. We don't want to run out before we hit town. like We did last year.
That's how it happened.
Yeah, because all the locals go on Flamingo now. And we were pretty much out by the time we turned the corner. We're actually in town. It's like a parade before the parade now, almost.
Yeah. So let's get enough.
Yeah. So I think one more big bag, and if we don't use it, we'll have it for next year, or
The
I'm
ration.
sure it'll slowly get eaten.
Oh,
Anyway.
candy.
Crack the whip there, Ben. Ration.
Yeah, right. Well done.
Work out a resupply on the bend there.
Uh-huh.
something
That's a
like
good
that.
idea. Yeah. Like that.
All right. Administrative, payment of bills, none.
Wow. First.
We have minutes from the meeting of February 12th. Anybody get a chance to look at them?
Celia did too.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes.
Second,
All in favor?
Hey,
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
can we discuss this ZBA notice we got?
Sure.
We got it's for a house on Atlantic Avenue. This is the house, or it's one of the properties that about 4 years ago, we authorized them accessing the property off the trustee trail that goes to the back of the parking lot.
But they never consummated that.
They withdrew the application. I don't know, we have got notified
house.
about that?
John, this is the house right
France.
next to the trail, the road.
Yes,
Next to the trail.
Francois DeMoniel did the house a number of years ago. Then there was a Paul Massey application.
Right.
Which the application was withdrawn because the property owner who actually owned the property to the north as well decided to go in a different direction. I think that they bought a different property.
They did.
Well, they were gonna
They did.
combine the two lots.
Yes.
And put one house on it, and they decided not to do that, so now there's still two lots.
Right.
My question, two things that stood out to me about this. One is, we weren't notified about this public hearing again, even
Which
though
is
we're an
tomorrow,
adjacent
right.
landowner.
Mhm.
And the other one is, I mean, throw this out to the board, but we authorized that property to take access off that trail for that particular project, when he wanted to combine the two lots and build one house. And now it's two lots. This guy wants to put in a pool. He has no plan to access off our property, but should we withdraw that permission?
I would
In
definitely
case
say-
that particular property comes in 10 years from now and says, well, in 2000, the trustees let.
I think, Chris, is there a way of sort of basically making the present owner aware that yes, in whatever year we had tentatively approved this, but there was no legal document of a permit. I think that, I don't think we ever provided any legal document in terms of a permit for that. So do you do nothing and just let it sit?
I think there should be an acknowledgement that,
Well, at first I agree, John, that there's been, once that project's been abandoned and there's no ZBA approval, then that, our tentative approval of using access from that property is gone. That's gone without the approval. Now, trustees can do nothing, of course, or we can send some sort of acknowledgement that it's been revoked or we're no longer going to allow access until the next application comes in and the type of access. So it's up to you guys how you want to proceed, but of course I can draft a letter to the current homeowner advising him of lack of trustee approval. That's what you guys want to do.
And then we'd
I
want
think that
him
would
to,
be wise, just for a note from the point of view of notice.
Well, you just don't want somebody to come through our door with something minutes from that meeting 3 years ago and say, no, in such and such a year, you guys said this was cool.
in the future, we should be careful about how we give these kinds of permissions.
Well, this is the new owner, isn't it?
I don't know,
I
probably,
think
yeah.
so.
I mean, the original, what we gave permission for was,
Was to a different owner
yeah.
And what
We gave
format-
permission for it, never
format-
happened.
and a different project, so they have.
Project
That was forwarded to the
is
ZBA.
never done.
I don't know.
But you know, when you buy, you know, it's like when you buy any of these things, there's some realtor out there that's telling you, yeah, and if you want to do your pool,
We already have the permission.
To configure your property a certain way, you can take access over here off this
because
trustee
we've got
road.
this, we've got a letter or a note or something that implies that that would be okay. And who knows, it might be, but I really felt like we were played a few years ago. You know, those
I
guys.
didn't like that.
Yeah, well, I think you were right, John.
Decision. But regardless of, the board did make the decision, but the board made the decision for that project.
Right. There was a
And
merger
now-
of the two.
You know,
Yeah, and you know that, and truthfully, the existing house that was there went through extensive review when they built that house, okay? The driveway that they have for that house is what I would say dysfunctional. But you know what it was? It was a dysfunctional driveway that the applicant signed off on when they built that house.
That house was built recently then?
It was built 10 years ago or so. Yeah, it's not that long ago.
It was functional or not, it was on their property, was it not?
It was on their property. Yes. They had to fully comply with,
I don't know,
in fact,
So let's draft a letter notifying not only the homeowner, but the ZBA.
I think we should also notify the attorney. Who's the same attorney for this ZBA thing, as far as I
What
know.
notice do we have in front of us now? 'Cause I haven't seen the notice.
Sorry?
What notice do we have now of the
It's a
impending?
notice of a public hearing, which is tomorrow.
And who sent us that notice?
ZBA.
Today.
ZBA notified us.
But they should have been
But it's a
notified
requirement of the
us.
applicant to notify us and have an affidavit at the hearing that states that they've personally notified all neighboring property owners. So if we wanted to, we could show up at the meeting tomorrow, object, and the public hearing will be canceled because they haven't notified us.
Well, we just recently had a thing with the ZBA where we said we haven't been being notified with,
the ZBA wasn't their
It's not-
job to
it's not
notify
their
it, it was the
job.
applicant.
And then
they
the
haven't
applicant,
enforced it.
Yeah, well,
Somebody hasn't enforced it.
and that occurs at every ZBA hearing. Prior to the start of the meeting, the attorney for the ZBA asks for the proof of, overnight delivery, return receipt requested, and you provide your proof via affidavit and all that. So
Well, I mean,
again,
you
the
know,
ZBA notice is almost more of a friendly reminder than anything, but it's the applicant that should have
I
notified.
mean, in this case, given the fact that, you know, we
Chris, you
have
wanna
a
bang out
history
letter
with this
to the
property.
ZBA,
Sure,
an objection letter?
absolutely. We can do it for tomorrow. We can have
Yeah.
it prior to the meeting, and if we want to request that meeting canceled, then we're well within our rights to do that. We haven't had time to deliberate an opportunity to respond.
Well, we were never notified, as per the rules of the ZBA. Now, what they do try and stand behind, what an attorney's gonna try and stand behind is, we're not required to notify the town of East Hampton if it's town of East Hampton property, but it's not. It's East Hampton Town trustee
Well,
property.
if this is the same attorney that asked us for the access to that
He sure
property in
as
the
hell knew
first
about it.
place, he should have been pretty careful about that, I would think.
So, listen, lesson learned. It's only gonna delay him.
And does this current application also take access from trustee
No.
property?
No, it proposed the other way.
So do you have an objection to it?
So I'm not clear, is there any?
No, we don't, this is just, all they want to do is build a pool here, I think.
Okay.
I don't have any objection to it. It's just my concern is if we don't say anything, you know, we granted permission for this access for a different project, which doesn't exist anymore. But will this property sometime down the line, if we don't say anything, say, trustees granted access to this 20 years ago, and now we want to exercise
Actually,
that permission?
John, to me, the bigger issue is we were never noticed.
Yeah, we don't have jurisdiction, over this application, but we were noticed as a neighboring property owner. So,
Yeah, I'm not saying
To be
this
honest,
goes
on
to the
pool, John,
ZBA.
this would be
This
one
this
that I
should go
would
to either
recommend
the
that we
attorneys or
comment to, but
the
the
owners.
fact that we weren't noticed is the issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got it. I understand that.
And that isn't the ZBA's issue.
I understand
That was
that.
the applicant's.
But it's an issue I think we should address
Yeah,
to
I
whoever we
agree
should
with you.
address it to.
Is there any documentation of this agreement?
It at least would be in the minutes. I don't
Yeah, for
know
the original project.
how it was handled otherwise.
So then that would say it was referring to that project in the minutes, right?
I don't know.
We'd have to get that and look at it.
well, yeah, it would specifically note the application that was in front of us that we had jurisdiction over. which is that application for that particular project. Reasonable minds would not believe that that means that we have granted authority in perpetuity for any future projects. However, it would very likely, as we've seen now, the trustees get overlooked. So it does make sense to send proper notice to everybody what our approval was for, and that's since been revoked because that is for one single project. In the meantime, you guys also need to decide, do we want to object to a public hearing tomorrow for the notice provisions?
So do we should point out that they did not follow ZBA.
Well, that's clearly, we should do that. I guess we've already done this recently. The same thing. We've pointed out that we hadn't been notified.
Yeah. We had this
Left it
trouble,
at
we had
Now
this
we're
trouble
like
in the past.
a month later doing it
we got
again.
it
How many
straightened
times are we going to do it
Well,
before
if
we
we want to prove a point, I'll show up tomorrow and object.
There you go. Hey, guys, I gotta, I'm on duty. Thanks.
All right, anybody have anything else?
Yeah, right. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this.
Okay.
Who exactly from the ZBA notified us, and how are we notified of tomorrow's hearing? Was it an email to Allison?
Email, it just forwarded
Okay,
the
so now I have an
applications
email.
to you.
Okay,
By email from Samantha Young, the ZBA secretary.
thank you. Okay, so at least I have the email. So tomorrow morning, I'll probably contact the ZBA, discuss that issue with them, and in the meantime, tomorrow we can also draft a letter that's going to go out to the homeowner's attorney, the homeowner, and the ZBA regarding our lack of approval of usage of Trustee Road. Okay? Sounds good. And if I don't feel warm and fuzzy over my conversation with ZBA tomorrow, then we can show up and object. Postpone the public hearing.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
You think we got notified because of what we brought up last month? This
No, I
time?
think that we should have been notified back when the application was made, I believe.
Yeah, we should have been
And
notified a long time ago.
I think we got notified of the public hearing by the ZBA, which I think is more courtesy.
Yeah.
It's not any requirement. The requirement wasn't a ZBA requirement, it was the homeowners, property owners.
So it's within, the rule states it's within an X amount of days of the public hearing. I don't know if it's 10.
I think it's 10 days.
I think it's 10, yeah.
Did the ZBA know about this concern before?
Yeah, we just
Absolutely.
notified them about another project on 3 Mile Harbor or something. that
Jim
we
hit the nail on the head, though. The real issue is agents of homeowners or their attorneys look at it and they loop us in with the town, and they believe in their interpretation of the code that they're not required to notify the governmental agency, the town, or the town trustees, but they're only required to notify individuals or property owners, not a government authority. So it really is an interpretation of the rule that they would argue, which I've read over, and a lawyer would love to argue that, you can argue either side if you're an attorney.
Because the weakness here is the homeowner doesn't know their responsibility to communicate to the trustees.
But their agent does.
For sure.
Yeah.
Especially this particular agent has already been in front of us on this property, so he knows better.
He's asked us for use of our property for this property.
Yeah.
Maybe he's thinking that now that the project has changed and that he no longer requires trustee approval, because there's no longer trustee jurisdiction.
Well, I don't
It
even
doesn't
know if
require notice.
originally there was any application to us. I remember he came and talked to, he asked us, he came and asked us.
I remember that too.
But I don't remember that. I never saw it. I wasn't on that committee or anything. I never saw any formal application to us. So I don't even know if there was any paperwork involved in this thing. It was kind of just what are the trustees going to do about allowing access off their road?
To do the construction.
No, it was to,
To access the property.
it was the access to the property.
Yeah, that's
They were
right.
gonna put the septic in front or
Right.
something like that.
So now they've reinterpreted that access?
No,
as-
No.
No. It hasn't come up yet. I mean,
No, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to clarify what the homeowner is requesting is that access be something different.
The homeowner's not requesting anything. This homeowner's not requesting anything. He's already got an access off Atlantic Avenue.
the
3
original,
years ago, on a different project, which included this property, we were asked to grant access off the Trustee Road, which we did.
With
That
an elaborate
project went away.
explanation of why it didn't make sense to continue current access off of Atlantic, that it only made sense now to go off of Trustee Road because of all these environmental issues and the layout of the property. It was a whole elaborate plan.
Oh, it's complicated.
so we approved it for that project.
Right.
Project
And
didn't
that
happen.
project never happened.
Well, you say that now, but is that memorialized anywhere? That 4 years ago, we said, we approved this for this project.
Well, that
Well, that's
project,
why he's sending a letter saying, no, it didn't.
we just get it cleared up. That if somebody wants to use that access again, they're gonna have to come up with a new permit plan, the whole thing, and it's gonna take another decision by whatever trustee board there is at the time to do what they want to do.
That makes sense.
I mean, I just have a question here about this in general. It's, in other cases like that road that up in Northwest, that Bull Run Road where the trees were, and we had this back and forth about who's responsible for stuff. The trustees have granted easements across their roads for access to their properties, which spelled out responsibilities. Sometimes they have and sometimes they haven't. This, I believe, this Atlantic Avenue thing 4 years ago was very informal. I mean, should
Right, there was no.
there
easement
be a more
granted.
formal way of granting accesses rather than say, yeah, sure,
Well, if we had granted an easement on that, we wouldn't be having this conversation now.
But John, I think for the Atlantic project, the idea was we were giving notice to ZBA that should this go forward, we would support granting the easement. What about Atlantic? We weren't going to just allow access on the Trustee Road without an easement via permission. They needed formal act, like we were going to agree ultimately to grant an easement if it went forward, which we never did.
Okay.
I'm just going off of my memory of our conversations that,
Yeah.
that wouldn't have been formalized enough for a homeowner and their attorney, an applicant to take access. They needed, legal access.
Yeah, I don't think we're committed to permanent access, but it's a good idea to just nail it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
in a letter.
And just as a talking point, remember now, the trustees do not have jurisdiction on projects to which we're a neighboring property owner. We can't approve or disapprove or grant anything, but as that landowner, we do have the authority to make comments, show up at the meeting, give our 2 cents on that particular project, just like any other neighboring landowner. That's sort of the purpose of notifying us of any of these projects to which we're the neighboring property owner is. You can chip in and make comments, and the ZBA certainly takes all of those into account.
Right.
Yeah, and to do that, you need at least 10 days notice.
Right, exactly.
Certainly not the day before.
Yeah.
So if the trustees do feel, and I haven't seen the new application, that we want to comment on this project and this property, and it is a sort of a marquee property on this proposed project, we haven't had the opportunity to review and deliberate to comment on it. So again, pursuant to the rule, we as a neighboring landowner are allowed to comment, and we haven't been given that opportunity. We have every right to show up and object to and request the postponement of the public hearing.
But, I mean, I didn't really look at this application in any great detail, but it seems to be really pretty, it's asking for a pool. I doubt if we would really comment on it. But in other cases where properties are adjacent to our waterways that we own, I'd say that, that's something we would definitely want to review in enough time to think about it and decide if we want to comment on it.
I think the best course of action long-term is that either the town code or the language within the guidelines and the rules that's in the permit application should note that not only the neighboring properties need to be notified, including if they're governmental agencies or trustees or whoever, to make it crystal clear that we're required to be notified as a neighboring landowner. That would remove any doubt or any argument from any attorneys to say, well, they're the town or they're the town trustees. It'd be nice if the language was more clear, because I read it and it.
Which I think it should be clear, because it, I can understand the government part of it, because the government's already reviewing the project. So it's already aware of it, it is reviewing it.
Yeah.
But
We're not.
they're not reviewing it on our behalf at all.
I agree.
Good?
I'm good.
Anybody have anything else?
No.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to close.
Have a second? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Matt. And
You're welcome. Thank you.